Welcome back. You're watching JKL. On the bench this evening, Charles Nyachai, Dr. Ekuro Okot, and Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who are all instrumental in one way or the other in the coming up with the current constitution, today marking 15 years since its promulgation on the 27th of August 2010. Yes, Charles, you had a point.
I was just going to take what Professor said just one step further, because he was responding to what I had said in terms of to what extent have we succeeded with the implementation process. And I had talked about what I described as one channel, the laws that gave effect to the Constitution. The other channel, which I think was an important part of the process of implementing the Constitution, was to inculcate that culture of constitutionalism. Sad to say, on that one, I think I was on a scale of 0 to 10, I wouldn't even give the 30% that
the Prof had given.
As referred to. On that one, we've done abysmally. And that has remained the situation. If you read the exit report of CIC, we said precisely that as a nation, we have failed to even kickstart the process of inculcating that culture of constitutionalism. And one of the main things that would need to have been done would have been, and it is contemplated in the law and the Constitution and the law, would have been to provide civic education as a starting point.
On the part of the public?
Mm-hmm. Yes, on the part of the public. And I believe this, the law provides for this responsibility to both levels of government. Sad to say, I don't think either level of government has really even started. I don't know, Prof, you may have, you did a lot of good things in Makueni. It's quite possible as an individual county you may have done something about that. But generally speaking, not the counties, not the national government, you don't even see a budget line for civic education. This is 15 years down the line.
Is it not then a deliberate attempt in ensuring that the status quo remains and keeping the public in the dark?
That could well be. If I wanted to be nice to the two levels of government, I would say maybe it's a question of they have not prioritized sufficiently. But it could well be what you're saying, that it is deliberate. And it will be very difficult to inculcate that culture of constitutionalism if you're dealing with a populace which does not even have the basic civic education. Mm-hmm. So that's an area that I think we have done, as I say, we have done abysmally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Prof, yes, please.
Yeah, maybe I could add in terms of, for example, the County Governments Act. It is very elaborate in terms of how civic education requires to be done. A complete part on that. But I remember when I tried to sensitize, the County Assembly about the need to make sure that there is funds allocated in the budget for civic education, I was told, we are here to build hospitals, to build bridges, to build roads. Civic education is not a priority. But of course they knew that when you have a citizenry that is aware, then they are held accountable. And even at the national level, civic education initially, when there was the devolution ministry, was supposed to be done there.
Yes.
Then, of course, the Attorney General's office also as well. But the Ministry of Devolution was, changed, so that it became a sub-department. Yes, a state, kind of department. And therefore, that aspect is very important. And even when we were making the Constitution, you remember some people saying that I have read the Constitution for you. You don't have to read it. Yeah. So that from the word go, citizens were like being told, you don't have to, bother and worry about familiarizing yourself with the Constitution. We have done that for you. And so this is a priority, and it is, something that the young people, are saying, that they want to go to every ward and they want to really, be involved in, the civic education. But I think it's the responsibility of government, and even in terms of what you did for the Implementation Commission, after you, there wasn't that follow-up, so that there was a dedicated, body to continue, helping us to implement, to grow this culture. And even the parliamentary committee, which now is supposed to help us to do that, it is not supposed to be a lucrative committee. So many members of parliament don't like that one. Yeah. It's not like budget, it's not like, public accounts and so on and so on. So there isn't really that dedicated interest, so to speak, to continue implementing the Constitution.
But to build on.
But is the environment right, Dr. Ekuru, given the conduct of Parliament and the executive? Is the environment for the operation of this Constitution right?
To be honest, like we said, that Constitutions are a living text, and it requires leadership. Even the fact that you need people to be aware of their constitutional rights, their civil liberties. We could easily just say today, through the Ministry of Education, let's incorporate constitution teaching in our curriculum, at all levels, starting from primary. We used to do civics,
yes,
in schools. So, and civics that curriculum should actually accommodate constitution teaching. And just to summarize, when we were doing civic education on the Constitution before promulgation, we had actually summarized and synthesized certain key aspects of the Constitution that can be incorporated into the education curriculum. But the truth for the matter is, and to your question, yes, the current environment, politically speaking, and we have said it, they are not interested in a citizenry that is aware of their rights. Even if you look at, for example, the conduct, the manner in which Article 37 was suppressed when the Gen Zs went to the street, this is a political environment that does not want citizens who are aware of their rights and the liberties. And you see, if you have got genuine, honest leaders, they will want a very aware citizenry on what to expect. And therefore, yes, I will say no. The answer is no. The current political environment, parliamentarians, if you look at, for example, even just what the parliamentarians did the other day, once the president accused them of bribery, they went to Parliament and started saying, oh, we did this for you, we did this for you. Why would a parliamentarian say that? They are forgetting the fact that it is a constituency that actually sent them to the National Assembly to represent them.
Not the president.
And not the president, to oversight government and to pass legislation that is actually friendly to the people. So by the time you pass the housing levy bill or whatever, you ought to have said, okay, in my constituency, does this make sense? I remember, for example, Senator Omogeni actually proposing some very good amendments to the housing levy and saying, okay, can we take into account, for example, people who have got commitment on mortgages or people who are about to retire? Why will you, knowing, for example, the nature of our Kenyans, you probably have invested, you have built yourself a rural home. But now here is a law that's being saying you must now contribute to this housing levy. You don't even know the formula on how it's being, So yes, the political environment actually does not, encourage the realization of the culture Prof has spoken about of constitutionalism. That basically, living what the Constitution actually says. The truth for the matter is we have the wrong people. Like I said, elect a dog and expect a dog to implement the Constitution. It will just continue barking.
And Charles,
I was just going to say,
the consequences are far-reaching, is it, when Parliament supplicates at the feet of the executive?
yes, that destroys the very architecture of the Constitution, because there's a reason why the structure of the Constitution is that specific delegation, because each of the three arms of government acts on authority delegated from the people, judicial authority, legislative authority, and executive authority. Now, if, as you say, the legislature supplicates at the feet of the executive, then you've clearly destroyed that architecture. What I was going to say, in terms of the environment, I think, and I go back to the very first question you asked, Professor, the president declaring this Katiba Day and saying, let us, we are going to do this every year from now on. I think, they say if you're given lemonade, you make lemonade. If you're given a lemon, you make lemonade out of it. I think this gives us a window to ensure that the mainstreaming of discussions about Katiba and what we should be doing is brought to the center. So that, for example, beyond just marking and recognizing Katiba Day, if even legislation could be introduced so that every public institution or public office holder, because virtually all of them, in one way or another, are required to give a report to somebody every year. So if there was a requirement that in that report there must be a section of what that institution had done towards implementing the Constitution, I think that would take us quite some way. When you're introducing, you talked about hits and misses.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me the biggest miss in the implementation of the Constitution, I would probably say the lack of an institution or a body to do the work such as CIC was doing beyond the 5 years. Because if you look at the last 10 years, after the life of CIC came to an end, I'm not sure that you can trace who was keeping an eye on what is happening or what is not happening in terms of the Constitution, even as we stray away more and more from fidelity to the Constitution. If you look, Daktari, you look at you included the committee of experts included more or less a permanent committee in the National Assembly called the CIOC. Yeah. But if you were to evaluate, the first few years under initially I think under Babu Namamba and then Abdikadir, you can see what they did, what they were doing. But after that, did you ever hear of that committee? And in the absence of a body like an independent commission called CIC or call it anything else that you may have, in the absence of that, who is keeping watch on the implementation of the Constitution? And that's a big miss.
Chair, ideally, the Constitution has created, the Constitution basically is the highest law in the land. It creates institutions and apportions power to these institutions and responsibilities. So ideally, you should expect every organ that's being created within the Constitution actually ought to implement aspects of the Constitution. For example, let me just use an example. When, for example, President William Ruto gives a decree that let's compensate the people, who are killed, victims, but it does not say, okay, we need to know who actually committed those killings. He's actually giving himself a license to say, this will not stop today. We will kill, then we will compensate, using taxpayers' money. But it's for me, eroding the whole aspect of Chapter 4, that wants to protect life, protect civil liberties. So the state is actually giving itself a blank check to say, we will kill, but we will compensate you. So, but when can we hold individual institutions accountable, including Parliament itself, by asking the question, no, Mr. President, you cannot do that. the police or IPOA ought to investigate and tell us, for example, before you can compensate, yes, and I agree with compensation, but where is justice? Where is accountability? We must hold people accountable, because that's what Article 10 on national values and principles of governance speaks about.
But Dr. Ekuru, it's the same politicians in Parliament who are calling for the shooting of Kenyans as well. Do they even comprehend the extent of the power that they hold, including the impeachment of a president?
You see, I think the question here really is, and I think that's the essence of Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, and I'm really hoping that today, as we discuss Katiba at 15, it's a learning curve for Kenyans. That who do we actually send to represent us? Who do we give those responsibilities? The people that we actually appoint into those independent offices, how responsible are they? Should parliamentarians today who represent, say, for example, victims of police brutality coming from my constituency, should they actually even be sitting? Why shouldn't they be talking about, asking, no, yes, we can compensate, but honestly, who actually committed this atrocity? Who killed? That should be the responsibility of, for example, an institution like Parliament. So today, Parliament, honestly, is just a puppet of the executive. It's an extension of the executive. And it erodes the whole idea in constitution making, on constitutionalism, about the separation of powers. So you actually today, I think there's a very thin line, if any, between Parliament and the executive.
But I think...
Yes, Prof. But there is a saving grace, before Prof comes, that at least the judiciary has made certain pronouncements and judgments against the executive, but you still have the executive that does not respect even orders of the court. So so the question of separation of powers in terms of the constitution, even though it's entrenched and embedded, is being diluted,
which continues to be a problem. Prof, when we get back from the break, I'll begin with you to further this conversation on the institutions that are born out of the Constitution, as well as then generally the environment and repression against the Kenyan people, especially during protests, and also the fight against corruption. All that is after the break here on The Bench. Stay tuned.